Hello, I'm going to do a quick little video here talking about curved edge. And no, not all curved edges are created the same, unfortunately. So in a lot of our drawings, we're using the straight edge to make the edge of things, right, to erase it against or add to. And you can use the, and I want you to continue to do that, you can use the straight edge to infer the angularity of an edge. Kind of the accumulated tangents. It's not a kind of a mathematical, I'm not using it in a mathematical way, but in a kind of more art way. The idea of kind of faceting or changing the angle of a straight line in order to infer the edge of something that's what I'm talking about here. So what I want to do here is I kind of have two curves here, and I want to talk a little bit about creating a implication of that particular curve. I just used a French curve here. So I could probably break this down into three, initially maybe three straight lines that kind of, let me back up there, when seen together, will infer the trajectory of that curve, right? Okay, see how I'm doing that? So it's not a perfect curve by any stretch of the imagination, but what it is a series of angles that are relaying this curve relative to what? To the edge of the paper, okay? So this angle right here is a particular angle relative to the, horizontal. Or this angle has a particular angle relative to the vertical. So I'm reading this curve, in other words, that part of the curve, relative to what the edge of the paper is offering me, right? And that's angle approximation. So if I'm drawing a curved passage and I don't see its relationship to vertical and horizontal, it might as well have no meaning whatsoever, right? If it's not related in some way to this idea of the picture plane, the vertical and the horizontal. So drawing a curved edge or inferring a curved edge using straight edges is a really important way to figure out that curve. So what you do, I'll draw another one here, the underneath part. So this I could maybe describe with two moves, right? So if I was drawing this and using the straight edge to chop in curvilinear passages, I would put the angle, the straight edge at a particular angle to approximate a certain length of that curve, okay? So the top one here I've done, I'll throw another one in here. 1, 2, 3, 4 different lines to kind of approximate the curve of that passage. Here I've done 2 lines down here. I'll do a shorter one here. Okay. So maybe I'll throw another one in here, right? So as you make your drawing, you're chopping, you're subtracting, you're adding to kind of come to a sense of edge in your drawing. That's what you would do, right? See how close those are? But they are very particular. Now you say, why can't I just draw that curve? Because it's so difficult to draw a curve, number one, and get it right the first time. And number two, to draw it in such a way that you are understanding its trajectory, right? Its angularity relative to vertical and horizontal. So what you do is you use a straight edge to chop it in. That's one of the videos I showed you how I showed you examples of doing a portrait with that technique of just using straight lines. So if you do enough straight lines and throw enough edges in there, eventually all that stuff starts to read as a curvilinear form, okay? So, see the blue line has kind of disappeared there. Let's pop that back in. So there's the original curve, and those lines are kind of creating the implication of that curve, correct? So if let's take the blue line away altogether, I have that sense of form right in there. It's just a series of straight lines, that's all. And once I put the curve back in, then you can start to see it again, right? The original curve that I'm trying to document. So what I'm going to do now is let's just see if we can blend a little bit. Pop this original French curve in there. And, you know, you do this freehand in your drawing or whatever, and then go back in and cut it in again and all that sort of stuff. But this idea of angularity to get a curve is really important. So if I blend it now along that edge, let's see what happens here. Now, you don't have the luxury of having a French curve, right? But this is a push-pull process, so you would do it over a period of time with smaller and smaller kind of moves, right, in your drawing. So this French curve is kind of acting as a stencil for this, right? Now let's gently erase away here some of these excess lines. You know, your ruler is going to kind of go further than the particular passage you're trying to relay, right? So you don't have to draw your lines that far, but it's okay if you do, and you just cut them away, right? So that curve is there as a result of those straight lines that I just popped in there, right? And then, you know, I went back over with the edge of that French curve. But so this is kind of the way you would figure out the trajectory through a faceting of straight edges of a particular passage. Now, do you need to get to that smoothness? No, you don't. But you can infer it, right, through the faceting process, which is what's happening in that shoe drawing, for instance. It's more curvilinear form. So let's pop that original one back in there. It's more curvilinear form, so you will be faceting this object, right? You know, the paper bag didn't have to do that, right? Even though the crumpling of the paper bag presented these kind of this organic quality to it, this undulation. It's not as severe as in the shoe in terms of a more organic vibe, you know, rounder vibe. So, but my point here is you still have to kind of understand angularity and use that straight edge to cut that in order to in order to infer that curve, okay? And it's a push-pull. You're adding and subtracting, you know, endlessly to get these edges in your drawing. So, okay, that's just a quick little kind of lesson on this idea of faceting along an edge, understanding the particular trajectory of a curved form, and then kind of unifying or integrating that curve eventually in the drawing later on. And sometimes you don't even need to do that, right? I didn't really do that too much in my finished shoe drawing. I just kind of got smaller and smaller facets over time, you know, just kind of cut it in. So you look for the bigger moves first, like in that top of this, you know, in the top of this French curve, I had 3 lines documenting the trajectory of that curve, right? That's what you look for first. And then you move to the smaller and smaller and smaller eventually to be able to kind of really hone that curve, okay? So a curve is a very difficult shape to navigate in a drawing, and you need to do it through the use of these tangents or these facets or these related angles. Okay, thank you.